ataki dostępne! Jest to wombo combo ze strony Agoro!
Fans, welcome to the second and final day of semifinals, live from Berlin. Today we see the LFL champions LDLC taking on the last Spanish team left in the tournament, Heretics. My name is Orchid, and with me is Nymera and Ox. It's so good to see you again.
Hey, it's good to be here. How crazy is it? Every EU Masters, we always have 2 semifinals.
It's crazy.
It's, yeah, math.
Turns out when you have a tournament with 2 sides to it, there are 2 semifinals.
That's usually how it works. I mean, it's awesome to have you guys here, and I'm looking forward to today. Hopefully you as well, because it's hopefully going to be a banger.
Absolutely. I mean, from what we've been hearing from, say, Heretics' coach, a number of the analysts in the scene as well, should be a fairly close matchup. Now, when we said things have been close, it's gone the other way. But the logic still stands. It is meant to be a really momentum-based matchup. Lots on the table here.
So basically what Nymera is trying to say, Ox, is going to be 3-0 for one of these teams.
No,
so
I'm going to say it's going to be a 3-0, and then it will be a close series.
Reverse psychology. Before we dive into today's matchup, let's have a look back at yesterday, as BDS Academy is the first team to advance to the final. And I think with their performance, they're definitely a team to beat. I would even say they're the favorites right now.
I would say that. Actually, after the quarterfinals against Vitality B, I was comfortable saying that BDS Academy were the tournament favorites. After the semi-finals versus Game Ward, I am even more happy to say that. Now, of course, there's a lot of legwork to be done, and favorites only mean as much as the performances that you're putting out. But BDS Academy have gone from strength to strength. They've started evolving through this competition as well. No longer are they just the team just playing through topside. They're showing new faces to us, and they are very strong.
And with BDS Academy advancing, we had to say goodbye to Game Ward, and they were only Plains team left, Ox.
Yeah, and I mean, we typically see Plains teams do really well in EU Masters. At least we've had winners who've come from Plains, like Misfits Premier previously.
Carmine
Corp. Yeah. Starting in the Plains gives you that time to get used to the meta, to get warmed up, and to really develop over the course of the tournament. And I think Game Ward have done that, but they just couldn't match up against BDSA. And it felt like despite coming out with drafts that gave them tools to get ahead early, set the momentum, get Inax ahead over Crowny, they couldn't make it work to the point that they could close out the game.
Yeah, because that's what I was going to touch upon. It's not only the draft, like, they actually had a plan.
Yeah, they had absolutely had that plan. They said, okay, we have a strong bot lane. Inax has been a real powerhouse for us, and Crowny hasn't really been that present in the early game. So let's force him to play early game. Let's see what we can do. But the problem comes is that you can put Crowny behind, but the rest of the map is so strong for BDS Academy. So they put a lot of resources down bot side, and they couldn't quite overcome what was happening on the rest of the map, despite the early kills.
Yeah, I feel like everyone has a plan until they get hit in the face. And Adam and Rika were definitely hitting their oppositions in the face repeatedly over the course of this series.
Yeah, because let's talk about Adam and Rika in a little bit, because, I mean, Crowny just, you know, standing there, soaking up all the pressure that was being put on him from Game Ward. I mean, it worked for them against X7. Then Game Ward just, like, played that early game, but non-existent right now. And I have to say, Crowny Ardota really dealt very well with the pressure.
Yeah, now, I know that Crowny was on the post-game interview saying, actually, it wasn't, you know, the best series from them, but the rest of the team really has used the freedom, which the bot lane has kind of been soaking up this pressure to do some crazy things. I know that, Orcs, you want to talk about Rika in particular.
Yeah, I mean, especially this final game when he's on Viktor, it felt like he consistently had the pressure advantage in lane, was getting level advantages, but in the team fights, he just came alive, flashing forwards, dominating, taking out Inax, despite how fed he was.
That's one part of it. Then the other solo lane is my shortlist for MVP right now. Because Adam, it doesn't matter what counter pick you have to him. he's just going to run through your lane. And I think particularly in the quarterfinals, we saw an evolution from just being a little bit more of the laning player to being a huge team fight threat. He's come out of this tournament with a pentakill as well. And in semifinals, he was just unanswerable.
Yeah, I mean, it looks like there's no counter pick possible against this guy. I mean, he pulled out the Darius yesterday. We saw the H, we praised him for. I mean, he just looks so good.
Yeah, and I feel like it's moved away from, okay, let's play for Adam and get him fed, to Adam is self-sufficient. He will do that on his own. He will challenge you in the 1v1 and then join in the team fights like this and completely take over. So it's kind of like we can rely on him to dominate while investing resources on the rest of the map to mitigate any pressure that was coming out.
And I gotta say, Nightmare, that damage per minute,
That's very high.
I mean, I threw up a little. 699 damage per minute.
That is just positively just disgusting to look at, because we've seen the highlight plays, and this guy is just a walking montage reel at this tournament. And I think that is the real evolution which Orcs is talking about, though. It's not just that you give him resources and he has a strong lane matchup, is that he does that regardless of what's happening on the rest of the map. And then he comes into the team fights and is a huge impact as well. Seems like there's really nothing he can't do in this tournament.
Yeah, and I feel like for Adam as well, a lot of people look at players who've been in the LEC and think, you know, that was their opportunity. But Adam is still a very young player. He was very quickly brought up into Fnatic, and sure, things didn't quite work out as planned. Obviously, there were some issues with when Fnatic went to Worlds, but I think he's still showing so much growth and that he has potential to shine on any stage.
So, with BDS Academy showing up big time, of course, there's one big match left for them, which is the grand final that will be played this Sunday. So let's talk about this for a bit. What are we expecting from that final, Namir? I mean, we don't really know yet who they're playing against, but I mean, does it even matter for them?
Oh, man. Well, the thing is, what are we expecting from it? We're expecting a bit of BDSA winning to an extent, right? Because for the last 2 months, since LFL Summer Week 4, BDS Academy have only lost to one team, and that team is LDLC. Now, there's a chance that they face them again in the finals, but they haven't done a lot of losing. They have a huge amount of momentum. They've had a huge amount of growth, and there is a lot of strength behind this team.
Ox, if I remember this correctly, there was a certain team last split that also went undefeated up until the final. They came in second.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing that can happen, is that, like, with how things can pan out, you can find some momentum and go really well, but some teams can really struggle when they're faced with adversary. I feel like BDSA, though, we saw them face that adversary domestically, right? They knocked LDLC down in that first matchup against them in the playoffs, and then, yes, they did end up losing out, but I feel like they've had this time to re-examine how they play, to improve, and it's like, I think they are a really formidable beast. And I think LDLC and Heretics, it's not just about winning today, it's about showing that you can step up to that level.
Yeah, because, I mean, BDS Academy on the other side, their bracket has not been easy. They've been through 2 LFL teams. If it is LDLC in the finals, they could knock out all of their regional competition in the same one fell swoop. How crazy would that be?
I mean, that would be insane. I think something that's also insane, and we already talked about him a little bit, is the fact that you brought up, Adam has had 2 MVP votes, like, from public for him to be the MVP. So I'm choking a little bit, just like Melodic did yesterday. So I want to talk about the champion picks here, Ox. These are not necessarily, I mean, they are top lane champs in a way, but they are pretty much linked to Adam.
Yeah, they're not something we typically see in competitive play. Aatrox is the exception. I'll say Aatrox is super broken right now.
This guy?
Yeah.
This guy's
dangerous.
a problem.
Yeah, and if you let Adam get it, he will absolutely take over the game. We saw Melodic try to answer with the Akali, did not work at all. But the problem is, you can pick away the Aatrox, you can ban the Aatrox. There are other picks that you really struggle with, like the Darius and the Olaf, because they are specific to Adam. So investing bans into them is obviously a bit painful, and also you can't really pick them away, and he will absolutely tear up the rift on these picks.
Now, we've only got the 3 champions up here. That's what we've got space for. But if there was a 4th, there'd be a Nah. And if there was a 5th one, there'd be...
entire wall.
We would just have to plaster everything here. This is just like the greatest hits, I suppose, from this tournament.
Yeah, there's a lot more depth.
There's so much depth, and I remember speaking to SK Prime's coach, actually. We were chatting a little bit recently. I remember he was talking about how difficult it was to try and draft against him because he's always got another pick to crush the 1v1 in.
Now, given as a fact is that they will face against an LDLC or Heretics. It kind of depends on how today will go. Now, LDLC seems to be the kryptonite for BDS Academy. They have faced each other twice in LFL playoffs. One time BDS Academy won, the other time LDLC won, and they won the LFL with that. Now I want to kind of zoom into that final, because what did LDLC do to make BDS Academy's life so hard?
So there are two big factors which I would put it down to. One is one pick in the top lane called Sejuani. Sejuani was very important in that series because Ragner picked that into Adam, and that actually nullified the lane well enough for the rest of the team to play towards LDLC strengths, which is largely finding that one play in the early to mid game which blows open the map, kind of like a G2X style, right? You make one mistake and the map falls away from you. But you can only do that if you nullify the top side. And then going into that mid game, which is one of BDS Academy's strengths, LDLC have that platform to beat them at that game as well. They have the strength, they have the individual talent to take it to them as long as they nullify the strengths of BDS Academy.
So basically, you just want to, stomp Crownie and just Adam, handshake in top lane, that's basically what you want to do. On the other hand, though, Heretics, it kind of feels like they really play through bot lane, but they do it in a different way than Game War tried to do it yesterday.
Yeah, well, I think they are really successful at enabling their AD carry. I think Jackspektra has been such a good player. So many people have sung his praises and looked for him as one of the emerging AD carries for the region who'll join the LEC. Rank 1 in solo queue pretty recently. But a big factor, I feel like, is not just the fact that they can get him ahead on picks like Kalista Draven, but how he uses that momentum and how the team will play around him, right? He'll lean into the jungle with his support and to try and help the jungle to get ahead there. They'll lean around objectives. It's just great utilization of the priority that they achieve in the bot lane.
And I think the break point for me is that, one, you can pick these lane dominant picks like the Kalista and you just run over the entire bot side of the map, or maybe do something which hasn't happened in this play so far. Isolate the 2v2 and let them win in isolation without those resources, and then stabilize the rest of the map while the bot lane's already winning.
But, we're kind of going fast forward here because that's for Sunday if either of these teams make it. For coming Sunday, that's what you can expect from that. We're still in search of our second finalist, which will be determined today. And the last non-LFL team, Heretics, will do their best to get there. So now let's take a closer look behind the scenes from our semi-finalist and future LEC participant.
Heretics nació sin ninguna inversión detrás, era un proyecto de 3 chavales básicamente, no teníamos nada de dinero, entonces teníamos que ir ascendiendo poco a poco. Yo tenía mi carrera en YouTube y tenía mi audiencia y dije, bueno, pues a través de mi audiencia vamos a crear un club de esports, vamos a hacerlo de una forma un poco diferente y bueno, pues así empezó todo. Bueno, pues bienvenidos al Heretics Hub. Es nuestro espacio físico aquí en Madrid, que tiene la parte de tienda, una parte de ciber, de gaming puro y también un mini estadio donde vamos a jugar los partidos y donde vamos a hacer viewing parties de todas las competiciones que juega Heretics. La marca es súper importante, es lo que hace que Heretics no solo sea un club de esports, es un poco también en lo que nos hemos centrado, en expandir los límites de lo que puede ser un club de esports, no solo quedarnos con la parte de competición, que la queremos llevar a lo más alto, pero también desarrollar toda la parte de marca. Queremos llegar a ser el club más grande del mundo y para serlo, obviamente, tienes que tener equipo de League of Legends, es el eSport más grande del mundo. Es cierto que Heretics siempre ha sido de shooters y sabíamos que si entrábamos en LoL teníamos que tener una persona con credibilidad para entrar a una industria de la que no éramos nativos.
Been secured by the Copenhagen Wolves, but what damage can Warlip do?
They lost it.
2, that's 3. Warlip's gonna get out alive.
Yo estaba en un momento donde llevaba compitiendo 7, 8 años. Yo sentía que, no sé, esa necesidad de tener un club, pero para siempre. Me sentí muy encajado, me sentí muy representado y dije, yo creo que a largo plazo no va a haber ningún sitio donde esté más cómodo y donde yo creo que se van a hacer mejor las cosas.
When I joined the Spanish League, it was like everybody really cared about the matches. There were so many big personalities. I wanted to be on the best roster possible, and I think the result that we showed in spring didn't really show our true potential as a team.
I won a lot of LANs in my career, like over 20, and this time when I came to Spain, I thought this level of the competition and level of other teams was pretty high, so I expected like top 2, top 3.
Con Heretics sí que siento que ha sido de un 0 a un 200. Hablamos de que el año pasado no tenían equipo de LoL, decidieron entrar en Superliga.
Siempre quisimos entrar en League of Legends, entramos en segunda división, ganamos la segunda división, pero perdimos el up and down. Luego volvimos a intentar entrar en Superliga uniéndonos a G2, hicimos G2 Heretics, pero no nos sentíamos cómodos del todo porque no era nuestra plaza, no era nuestro proyecto. Así que ya el año pasado decidimos pegar el salto y entrar como nosotros, como Team Heretics. Y la verdad que ha sido la mejor decisión que hemos podido hacer.
Está guapo esto,
Está guapo. Y lo que mola es que aquí lo que tenemos que poner también es una cámara, ¿sabes? Rollo desde la esquina y pinchar desde el co-stream, ¿sabes? Pinchar esto.
De cabeza, cuando pinchemos se vuelva loca la gente.
El capitán Jackspektra.
It felt pretty surreal when it happened, and being in front of like a live audience of so many people was really crazy.
Es como verme a mí un poco en el pasado, ¿no? Ver a jugadores, pues alguno lleva ya más tiempo, otro menos. Me da alegría ver a la gente hacer lo mismo que hacía yo.
I was quite excited. I felt like the adrenaline kind of took me over. Here it was majority Giants fans, and I don't know, something about it for me is like really satisfying about like shutting the crowd up, and I really enjoy that feeling, I guess.
Jackspektra! ¡Hecho que no le va a dar a nadie! ¡Esto que le pinta bien a Team Heretics con una doble para bluerzor!
La final era contra un equipo que, bueno, por nombres tenía que haber ganado la liga, tenía mucho más experiencia en stage, pero al final el equipo ha trabajado esta temporada increíble y se merecen ser campeones, vamos.
¡Tenemos nuevo campeón de la Superliga! ¡Heretics llega a su...
It feels very euphoric, absolutely. But at the same time, it kind of felt natural. Like, I think this team already had great players in them. I think Heretics had the resources to be able to do great things.
We understand each other really well, so here it's like more like a family for me.
Thanks to you guys, I also won Coach of the Split. So I'm going to have this ceremony, so I really want to thank you guys for that as well. Like how easy you made it for me in that regard.
Nice. I'm really grateful for all the work that my teammates put in and how far we were able to get, and I hope we can replicate it in new Masters.
2-0 para Heretics, que empieza con muy buen pie el European Masters.
Bueno, la verdad que ha sido un aprendizaje, pero es que la narrativa no ha podido ser mejor. Es decir, hemos salido campeones de España y ahora estamos representando a nuestro país en el European Master.
We were just like so focused on just like improving and running for the title that it didn't really sink in yet when it actually happened, when we were confirmed like as the first Spanish team for EU Masters.
Yo he tenido muy buena experiencia con European Masters. Ya no estás jugando en casa, no estás jugando en España, sino que de repente juegas contra los mejores, juegas contra leyendas de otros países. La última European Master que yo jugué también la ganamos, entonces eso para mí me representa un montonazo.
La gente sabe la competitividad que hay entre España y otros países y joder, poder representar a España y poder ser el equipo que está llegando más lejos, para nosotros es un honor y una responsabilidad. Entonces sí que esa responsabilidad yo creo que la sienten los jugadores y la sentimos todos, de intentar dejar a la Liga Española en la mejor posición posible.
Lo que se ha hecho hasta el día de hoy te da a entender cómo de en serio vamos. Hemos ganado la final de la Superliga, estamos ahora en European Masters y además hemos entrado a la LEC. La verdad, yo creo que es el mejor comienzo que puede tener un club entrando al LoL y para mí es pues, un mensaje muy claro de que al final Heretics venimos aquí a intentar ganar, pero a pasarlo bien.
Team Heretics want to build a legacy in Europe, and what could be a better way to do this than winning the Amazon European Masters, Ox? I mean, it's a big goal, but if you achieve it...
I mean, it's what everyone wants to do in Europe, right? It's the whole function. So many teams have joined the ERL ecosystem and being like, this is our goal to win EU Masters. That is the prize that everyone's aiming for. But at the end of the day, you know, especially recently, Spain has struggled to compete with the LFL region.
But there was a time where Spain was the dominant force within the ERLs, actually, right near the start in 2018. Merlin was talking about it in that video. Now, we're a long way from recapturing that glory period for the Spanish representatives, but the fact that they're coming in with that ambition, and it has been a hard road for them this year, it says something about the mindset. They finally made it here after such a disappointing spring, just missing out on those playoffs in their own region, such a tight region. But now they're getting a really strong result for Spain here in this summer.
Yeah, but today Heretics have to fight LDLC first, and I kind of want, I mean, not me actually, it's Nightmare who actually want to talk about the bot laners, because you called these two AD carries the AD carry princes of Europe.
Yeah, because every time we come into Amazon European Masters, we look at a couple of players and we put them on the table and say, do we think you're going to get an LEC next year? Because that's where the scouts are looking. That's
I mean, especially in summer, right?
Especially in summer, yeah, because you have this longer off-season coming up. You've got some teams which maybe go to Worlds, maybe bombed out of LEC, and they need to rebuild. And you start looking for the best stock you can get. And honestly, these two AD carries, they are right up there. And in this best of 5 today, they get to prove themselves against other top-tier opposition in the ERL AD carry role. This is where you get to really shine, put things on the table and say, this is what I'm made of.
Ox, if we look at the stats, how do I read the goal difference at 15? What do I take from that?
Look, Jackspektra is a guy who has played Draven since he was at the womb pretty much at this point, right? Kalista is another pick that's fantastic for him. We've seen him on the Lucian. This is someone who can obviously, play those hyper carries if needed, but where I see him best is when he's playing these aggressive picks that are so good in the meta, dominating his opponents and just completely finding these windows to outplay here, dodging away from the bandage toss and really outplaying Unicorn's bot lane.
And one thing which really stuck with me was on one of the death segments after this game, Noah came in and said, I don't think we're going to go see Lucian again in this series. I think that's the last time we'll see it in that. But then you think about the other champions which Jackspektra plays, which dominate laning phase, like that Draven seen on screen, like that Kalista. And how many picks do you have to respect at this point? Jackspektra just has enough to go the distance.
I mean, I think it's also a fun fact that the 11 games that we've seen Jackspektra play, 10 times Draven has been banned against. I mean, that's
and
just
the one game it hasn't, he wins. Yeah. You can't leave it open, and that puts so much pressure, particularly if a team is on red side when you already have to ban these power picks. Like, it is a fixed ban. I feel like the Draven, Kalista is a pretty common one as well. But then if you leave him to get the Lucian, you're still gonna have trouble. I feel like there isn't really a way to completely shut him down. You're just mitigating what he can do in the laning phase.
Now he is facing Exakick, and Exakick is the other prince on the other side. It feels like whoever takes down this battle might be the king of Europe when it comes to AD carries.
Well, they're definitely getting themselves onto the radar if they weren't already, and they absolutely should be. And you look at Exakick, and once again, very strong in lane, but a very wise player to the map as well, knows how to play out the mid game with the rest of his team. It's one of LDLC's specialties. Runs in with his prized Aphelios, this pick, which did take a knock in the quarterfinals, lost some of his career win rate on that, but even in those losses, was such a force to be reckoned with. And of course, Game 5 made this huge solo outplay on the tower.
I mean, we were all questioning, like, why would you ever pick Xayah? Because Xayah in this meta is kind of a...
When you can do that,
I mean, he's kind of the odd one out, and I think it's just tells a lot when Ragner said, it's like, yeah, Exakick said, give me Xayah and I'll win you the game. And that's just what he does.
A lot of confidence, and I think it really showed off. And there was definitely some games where it felt like when LDLC weren't able to shut down Denvoxney, when Denvoxney got to shine, because obviously it did go to 5 games, right? And I feel like that was kind of the thing where when Exakick had the advantage in lane, or came out lane in a comfortable spot, I feel like LDLC are fantastic, but we had some clips to show, like, there were moments where, Denvoxney on the Sivir in particular was able to rival him.
Yeah, and this is where we've racked our brains and we said, okay, well, where can this be relevant to today's matchup? Because you look at Denvoxney on Dusty, and he had a difficult series too, had a couple of iffy moments, but you're looking at Jackspektra, and you've given the same run at that kind of game as Denvoxney did in the quarterfinals. There are some worries there for LDLC, because it got to playing slow, going into the team fights later, and it became difficult for them.
With everything happening on the screen, what are we currently looking for?
I mean, I just feel like it's one of these things when you're playing something like Sivir, Denvoxney, when he's in those late game team fights, can pop off. I love this little ricochet double bounce double kill that happens off the side. But it was just one of these moments where when Dusty set up better in the bot lane, moments like this where LDLC felt confident and were challenged, that it really ended up costing them as a team. And I think in this meta, bot lane is so impactful, not just because obviously the value of having a strong AD carry with some of the picks we have, but also with the value of neutral objectives, moving your bot lane around the map to secure them, something that Heretics do so well with Jackspektra. You really have to be concerned. I fully think that it's not just that these two players are the stars of the team or that they're going to be the next LEC. It will be dictated by how bot lane goes.
Yeah, and as much as you can talk up AD carries, they only get to function because their team allows them to function like that. LDLC has such a good jungle support duo to allow them to play through dominant bot side as well.
I mean, it's clear to me, as we can see, the AD carry matchup will be very important, but I think LDC has more strengths than just bot lane, because I felt like when we looked at the series against Dusty, Yike and Eika, or Yika, how you want to put it, I felt like they were very prominent as well.
Yeah, and this is one of the real hallmarks of LDLC. When I think about them, particularly from Spring, they were a team that played so dominantly through mid-jungle, and then also support coming in there, so you can see a couple of clips of DOS roaming into the mid lane. But the special thing about Yike is that he's basically on call as like a third summoner spell for mid lane. He's just always there in his first couple of clears, able to outplay. Now, this is an overstep from Dusty. It's not a clean play from LDLC, but you can see immediately how they just pick up the ball and say, all right, this is the situation now. They take what happens in this mid-jungle 2v2, know that the jungle isn't going to be around, and Yike immediately gets vision down. It's an important second step in the plays that they make.
Yeah, I think it's just so intelligent that it's not just like, okay, I have a plan, I do this. It's like he will be very aware of what the enemy can potentially do and then respond to that accordingly and find advantages in that. It's kind of what you were talking about earlier with how they play as a team. When the opponents make a mistake in the mid to late game, that can often just be it.
And it, like I said, it kind of reminds me a little bit like a G2-esque kind of thing. It's a bit of a loose comparison, but the whole idea is you make one mistake and suddenly the whole map starts falling against you because they set up so well with this kind of vision. They take one mistake, they find 3 plays afterwards.
So how's this going to translate into the game? Because, I mean, obviously bluerzor and Zwyroo are, they're not the worst mid-jungle duo to play against.
Yeah, I think they've been really good. I do think that I give the edge to LDLC's mid-jungle, but I think often if Jackspektra can get an aggressive pick, we see them use the bot lane to invade in the jungle, and that's how they set up for the advantage. Whereas, like, if they mismanage, if they try and attempt to play in the mid lane, if we just see Eika end up dominating the lane, that's where LDLC can find favor. But I think we need such a clean game from Heretics if they want to stop any momentum coming out from LDLC.
This Nymera, LDLC is playing weak side bot lane.
Well, I wonder if it becomes weak side if mid jungle end up winning so hard that actually you can't play strong side on bot side because you're always going to have someone roaming down. I mean, that's what we saw particularly from BDS Academy, right? Where they were playing the Azir, permanent priority. You don't get to have that ability to have the whole side of the map covered. You've only got your one lane pushing, and if that's there alone without any scaffolding around it, it gets very, very difficult. So now we're seeing these 2 points of power. Bot lane, which leads to the invades. Mid lane, which leads to the invades from LDLC on the other side. Trying to see how that all intertangles. It's really interesting.
I've got it. It's AD carry diff is jungle diff, which is support diff, which is mid diff.
Yeah, that's something like that. Now, I hear some similarities from both teams. Is that fair to say?
Yeah.
Because I kind of feel like I don't really know where the edge is for one of these teams. Does it come down to picks, for example?
I mean, draft is definitely going to be a factor, right? We think back to MSI in spring where
What a
RNG
coincidence,
beat out
by the way.
T1. And a big factor, a lot of T1 fans were upset that they felt like the draft hadn't given them the edge. In close series, draft is definitely going to be a factor. But I think more than anything, execution is just such a pertinent thing. And if you're given the tools to allow you to execute, which is often what we see LDLC lean on, then being the proactive one, being able to set up those plays can make such a massive difference.
So why are these 3 picks so crucial for this series?
Well, you know, you got 2 random picks and then the best champion in the game. Either way, you do have like 2...
You think Wukong's the best champion of the game?
You have 2 pushing priority mid laners that can add to skirmishes very early into the game. Now, we've seen that not necessarily work on the other side of the bracket with BDS Academy and Game Ward, but on this one, it is very important to be able to fight early into the game. Unlock your jungle mid because they are so good at fighting. And the Wukong really helps with that too. Multiple damage sources, high target access, ability to fight early into the game.
Yeah, and I feel like it's one of those things where even the Azir kind of comes into shutting down those active movers. So I do feel like they're going to be investing more in the I want to be the proactive one. But if you want to stop that, if LDLC do want to bring out a pick, maybe that stops their opponent from moving, it could be along those lines as well. But ultimately, whoever gets control of the midsection of the map it's a no-brainer. It's going to just bleed out into the rest of the game.
Okay, gentlemen, I had a lot of information. I have some ideas now what the picks are going to be. I have some idea how it's going to play out, but I have no idea who to root for yet. Maybe you are one of those people. I'm trying to be, connecting with the audience here. What are the predictions for tonight, Ox?
I'm going for Heretics. I think going into that series against Unicorns of Love, lots of people felt like that was going to be favored towards the Unicorns, and they came out and upset. And I feel like that's a consistent theme where the general expectation is that LDLC should be favored, but I think Heretics, I think Jackspektra is such a strong AD carry. If they can enable him, and there's so many picks in which he's going to be enabled, I think they're going to be able to find the edge here and once again go for another upset and run the gauntlet up to the top and challenge BDSA.
I'm on the other side of the fence. I'm going to be an LDLC predictor today. Now, I love the way this team played this year. I love the way that their early macro is so incisive with the way that Yike and DOS and Eika all link up. And they're so good at punishing mistakes. And that's where I think the difference maker may be in this series, because even though Heretics did win against the Unicorns, it was an upset in many people's regards. And they didn't necessarily do it that cleanly. If they make those same mistakes there, LDLC are the best team in the tournament at punishing them. And I think in this best of 5, you make too many, game's just gone.
Well, it's that simple. Just don't make mistakes.
There you
just
go.
play better.
And I just want to say, why did your prediction say EU?
Yeah, what's happening there, buddy?
I'm all for just having fun. Okay. I think at the end of the day, we all have to win.
Why do we
have
bring him
to
on
celebrate good League of Legends, because that's what we're going to see. Also, I'm a host. I'm neutral.
Well, you already lost the prediction then, because you had a simple task. Pick one of the 2 teams.
In my book, Spain and France are both in Europe, so in the end, I'll win anyways. We are getting close to draft. Shut up. But before we jump into game number 1, we've prepared another video to get you even more hyped for today's series. Let's go with you.
The deficit they're finding themselves at. Well, we're going to put the Herald down here in the mid lane. Just look to get this tower down. Do have that objective gold as Jackspektra actually pops the ultimate. They're bringing everybody in with resource in the middle.
Oh my god.
Everyone, it is disgusting. Able to flash away for the moment. Viking's going to get pinned in place. He has nowhere to go. Can't pop the subjugate in time. Chasey slowing everybody down. He jumps into the middle. Chasey in hold. He's caught now. Attila's low HP. It's scattered. He's down. LDLC won't die either as he goes for a 1 versus 3. As Zwyroo here to finish the kill. bluerzor moves in. There's more. And Jackspektra grabs the pentakill.
From the side of LDLC.
Going in. They got Penta with the bot shot to win cap on the calling. Is allowing Exakick to get the shot down. And LDLC break the game in their favor.
was enough to get you hyped, I have no idea what is. Welcome to the Amazon European Masters semi-finals here between Heretics and LDLC OL. I'm Initialized, that's Jamada, and of course Trouble Inc. Pleasure to have you all here with me.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I heard something from our production like Vamos España.
I know, we got some Spanish production staff for today.
Yeah, I wonder who production wants to win this series, right?
I wonder where producers from.
Oh dear, love that rivalry here in Europe. And it is a really spicy one, right? Because the other side of the bracket was all LFL all the way. BDSA waiting in the finals, currently undefeated. Heretics here are the one remaining non-NFL team. They're up against LDLC of all teams, who are the French #1 seed, came in pre-tournament favourites. It was a bit of a rough road, though, in the quarterfinals for both these teams, though, right, Trouble?
Yeah, and honestly, it does feel like a little bit of a LFL Masters, because if you think how the LFL playoffs played out, it was BDS through the top side bracket, waiting in the finals for potential LDLC to join them just to beat them in the finals, right? And this would have been a huge revenge arc, if you will, for BDSA, waiting in the finals for that LDLC train to come in. But will the train actually arrive on time? Because Heretics kind of want to sabotage the line.
Yeah, and let's in fact look about that Heretics, situation, because honestly, Jamada, they're coming in potentially favoured here after how they played in their quarters.
I mean, hey, I have them down as favourites, right?
There you go.
I think, to me, Unicorns were one of the few teams alongside BDSA that could have potentially taken down LDLC, and it's Heretics who have slain the Unicorns. So I'm looking at this series now as, hey, you know what, Heretics, they've defied the expectations once. Can they do it again here against LDLC?
I feel like the story is always with LDLC, right? They fought Dusty, which pretty much played them in their own game, very slow into team fights. Unicorns love very slow into team fights. They're really good at the front to back. Heretics are a completely different side of the coin. They will fight you in the early, the LPL of the ERL.
I was about to say that.
Oh boy, here we go.
Where they will scan you, they will brawl you, they will play you in that early game, and we know that LDLC is this rock that doesn't necessarily crumble that easily in the early game. If Heretics manage to do that, they can run away with a bunch of games and potentially the series.
We've got two LPL analysts, one on the desk and one here, one of the casters here. And it's already started, and I do want to touch in the Heretics on the blue side. They're banning away some of Yike's more dangerous picks in the jungle. Of course, that stage one is flexible, alongside Exakick's infamous Aphelios. May have lost some of the win rate last series, but it's still very dangerous. The other side is trying to get rid of things like the Lucian. Jackspektra was so dangerous on.
Show me how you Azir.
And not only that, but Draven's up.
Yes.
For Jackspektra right
Holy
now.
moly.
Is this LDLC throwing down the gauntlet and saying, are you going to just B1 it? Like you said, Trouble, I like the idea of just picking up the Azir as well. I think it's such a strong pick. We saw BDSA leverage the strength of it already in cores and yesterday as well. And I like now that they've pretty much secured solid mid lane priority.
Yeah, of course, the Azir, highest presence mid laner for the whole down tournament, 93%. I think this will be the 64th pick overall, if I've done my math right. On the other side, you were right about that Draven being unbanned. 91% of the time it's banned against that team.
One game, and it's the only game that he picked it.
Yeah, and usually when you want to actually secure that Azir, that means that the picks like Draven, Kalista are really difficult to play into the Azir, which then allows Jackspektra to go for it because the Azir is on your side. It creates room and space for you. Loving the Ornn pick right here. It brings me a lot of Astralis vibes where they're like, how do we win Ornn, Renata with Twitch kind of vibe? And honestly, I wouldn't be very baffled if I saw that. It makes sense.
Yeah, completely agree. And of course, Ragnar's Ornn is a thing of beauty, and it makes things like the Draven pretty tricky if they do want to go towards it. Kalista for Exakick is a bit of an LDLC special.
I'm sorry. Kalista into Azir sucks, but Kalista into Azir Draven might suck even more.
Yeah, that's not going to be a particularly good lane if Heretics decide to go for it. I was very kind of surprised. I expected LDLC to come out with a strong bot lane as soon as they instantly rotate this on, right? You're probably looking at Ibo, looking at something like an Aatrox towards the top side there for himself. There it is. I mean, there's nothing else for them to go for, right?
It makes sense.
And even though LDLC were probably looking for the idea of getting, I expect, a DOS on the R5 counter pick, blinding Kalista just seems like such a slight here into Heretics.
I mean, it's something that has been banned against LDLC a hell of a lot, something like 80% of the time again. So, it's something Exakick's very comfortable on, but I do agree with the both of you. Not an easy game to just pick the Kalista and win automatically with it. Zwyroo's thinking about something like the Ahri, but instead we get Ibo's infamous Aatrox to back everything else up.
Now here's what I wonder. Of course, between these two teams, it's all about the bot lane. It's all about Jackspektra, whiteinn versus Exakick and DOS. And I feel like if Yike has actually wanted to play for that bot side of the map. Instead of sticking towards Ragnar, they stick Ragnar onto an Ornn, they leave him onto his own devices, and he perma-hits that bot side of the map. Now, of course, you do not have a lot of choices. The Poppies are out, the Sejuanis are out, the Vi is a really good pick if you want to lock someone down, and then you also have the follow-up with the Ornn.
Yeah, and not only that, I think just having the point-and-click lockdown on Draven and having the immediate follow-up already from the Ornn just makes so much sense, and now you have the opportunity to ban away 2 junglers, right? You can take away bluerzor's Trundle here, which you've already done, then you can look towards something else. Poppy's already off the table, a lot of these AD junglers that can still go on towards the ban phase, and LDLC are probably going to be sitting really comfortable 1-to-1 in the jungle pool.
Yeah, and I also like Jarvan's one of the very strong early game junglers, but when you're playing Kalista and Vi and Ornn, who can actually break Cataclysm and create a door for everyone to exit, right? I don't think you really care too much about the lack of Jarvan, but I agree with your Trundle. Really good catch right there, Jamada. And then you have one more pick to ban. This could very well be something like a Renata, like potentially a Zillion that Kalista really struggles into.
Already with the picks here, you can see there'll likely be some bot side focus, unsurprisingly, with who the teams are, and some level 6 shenanigans with all the crazy ultimates. The Nocturne is the final ban. It's one of those junglers that's been around and about as an occasional counter pick, and they've just decided they don't want to deal with that if it was going to, make those bot side plays even more tricky.
It's a really nice call-out, honestly. I think with some of the AD junglers that are still left up and available, maybe we see bluerzor kind of go off the tangent a little bit. Maybe he goes towards something like Xin Zhao, maybe, if he's really struggling. But I think, honestly, you definitely need to have something active when you're looking at Kalista as a jungle AD duo. When you have the Draven, you're going to want to try and out-skirmish this as Heretics.
I'm thinking right here, even something like a Viego would make sense from the side of bluerzor, because when I look at Viego, I look at the champions that he can pick up without their ultimates and see how valuable they are. And so far, Ornn is very valuable, Kalista and Vi all very valuable to sort of follow up a potential fight. And also, he has so much space created for himself with the Aatrox and the Azir soldiers that you could potentially pick something like this. Also really important if you want to dive towards the bot lane of the map. That level 6 resets the tower as well. Could potentially work really well with something like the Draven.
Yeah, he's not played any Viego yet this in a little while, so he's not played at this tournament at the very least, but maybe this would be the option here. Debating something like the Renata, which of course has fallen off priority a little bit, still very, very strong. The hostile takeover, very deadly as well, and it's a strong lane dominant pick. They do lock it in. Now we'd see what they do decide to go towards in that jungle. As you've both been saying, you would kind of prefer something like one of those AD brawlers, but
he still has things like Lee Sin, but I find Lee Sin extremely difficult to play here, especially if you don't dominate in the very early game. We saw in the series yesterday, Akabane really struggled over Lee Sin when it was the last pick that you can pick out of your box, right?
Yeah, I feel like Lee would more struggle here because it's kind of, I was going to say, Heretics are lacking a go button at the moment, right? And with LDLC banning away the Nocturne, they kind of force the hand here of bluerzor to go towards this Jarvan. It's not the best when it comes to the mid-game team fights into what LDLC are running, admittedly, but I think that at the very least, they'll give themselves the options to attack Eika in the mid lane on this immobile mage, maybe try and stand up in the 2v2 and the 3v3 on the bottom side.
But then you're allowing Yike to move towards the bot side of the map and try to create havoc by getting that Kalista ahead versus the Draven. And mind you, Kalista does not care too much about the flag and drags, about the Cataclysm. She can just hop out, loving the Janna right here on DOS versus Exakick.
Yeah, I mean, I was chatting to Orcs of all people literally last week about, like, the guy, you might have seen him on the desk or something. And I was chatting about, some of these picks that you could potentially throw down to the bot side, and thinking things like the Janna have been kind of going under the radar with things like Yumi and
Soraka, maybe?
Exactly, those kind of vibes. Janna's right up there in that, even if she's been flying under the radar, and this is an opportunity now to try and make that work. You can keep her even more safe, or just throw her in for one of those crazy insects, I suppose, with the Fate call into R from Janna.
I feel like what LDLC have done here is they've created so much room for Exakick to play team fights. The gravity field going down, Janna with so much CC in her ultimate pushing people away, Ornn ult and all of his CC that he can provide, plus the ornaments later on. Exakick is set up for success in the team fights, which is really difficult for Kalista to achieve.
Yeah, and honestly, you were both kind of a bit nervous about that early Kalista. My question now, Jamada, is have they done enough to make it more playable? Because I know you were nervous earlier on. Have these last few picks helped that, or helped change your mind at all? I'm looking at your face, you're not quite convinced.
I'm not fully sold. I think that they've definitely drafted a lot of space buying tools, like you say. I feel like Heretics are the kind of team that will try their best to actually worm around a lot of these issues that they're potentially going to run into here in the mid game. And again, they've still got, in my eyes, the favorable bot side matchup. And I think they can also very easily go to attack Eika in the mid lane.
Yeah, and as we head onto the Rift here for Game 1, a quick reminder to all of you out there as you're tuning in and preparing yourself and on, hopefully, Twitch, you can go claim your August/September League of Legends monthly capsule for all the Prime shoppers out there for your chance to get RP, Mythic Essence skins, and so much more. If you're tuning in, you may as well take the 2 seconds to go claim that because it's free stuff if you've got Prime already.
Yeah, and if you're playing Ornn, wouldn't you want to look like this?
Exactly.
Look
It's a very pretty skin.
yes.
It is a really pretty skin.
It's a good deal. Guys, go do it. I've done it loads of times. It's great.
I get so much and that's us selling out for a little bit. But the ad's over and the game's on. And that does mean we've got to keep our eyes up on this early game. I think eyes are obviously towards that bot lane. Interesting choice, Mex, to go towards the barrier to try and present some of the early deaths. And you've spotted something from Trouble. You're tapping at one of those screens. What are you seeing?
Back in 2020.
Yes.
Okay. The top laner of Heretics, Aibo, was playing for a team called Kick, together with Pokestyle when the whole situation blew up. It was 2020 spring, actually, even when that blew up. Now, Aibo is my dad's, who's watching a lot of League of Legends, favorite ERO top laner because he's told me that no one can beat him on his Aatrox. Funnily enough, Aibo is undefeated this European Masters on his Aatrox. He's 3-0. It's one of his more legendary picks and what he's known for. And honestly, I remember back then the chat. My dad was going to the chat and just posting posts at Gurum and stuff. And like a lot of Polish people were posting like Dad Gurum because he
I love that.
Because he was supporting Aibo. So that's my bias for the day.
And you know what? Actually, even history aside, Aibo's Aatrox got Heretics to this semi-finals with that flag. So instrumental for Heretics to make sure that they also try and pay some attention to the top side to a degree. But I feel like, again, Ragner on that one, he should very much be self-sufficient.
Funnily, you mentioned that. I believe we've actually even prepped a graphic for that specific pick for Aibo because it was so dominant for production. If you've got that, I'd love to see it because the numbers have been nothing short of incredible. Maybe we'll have to keep our eyes on those numbers as Heretics actually using the pressure bot to get in on this Grom. We'll have to come back to it. So much damage and Yike's forced out very early. He's had to flash away with the Ignite down as well.
Yeah, I mean, one more, he was about to die. But this is what Heretics love to do. They did it so many times throughout the entirety of quarterfinals. And again, Heretics get that shove in the bottom side of the map, immediately roam up to where bluerzor is, go and cause Yike some issues. They force him off the Gromp. I believe that one went over to bluerzor, and now there's a pretty big jungle lead that they can try and leverage as they move forward throughout towards the mid lane.
And I love this. This is something that G2 used to do when Reckless was in the team, especially when he was playing a bunch of Tristana. They would have Perma Prior in the bot side of the map, and then Jankos would just invade the bot quadrant of whatever jungler they were playing against. So that's a really pretty good move. You've set your jungler pretty much 3 camps ahead at this point, and you also have your entire bot quadrant of the jungle if you're bluerzor to farm.
Fantastic. And now that we haven't got this slight early invade going on from Heretics to get bluerzor ahead, then we can touch on those Aatrox numbers because they are pretty impressive, shall we say, currently at EU Masters.
So we're talking about Adam yesterday, and we said how his Aatrox was doing about 640 damage per minute. Yeah, Aibo's is a little bit above that. 653, 100% win rate, as we've mentioned, in this entire European Masters at 16.5 KDA. Oh, might I add...
Wait, Zwyroo? That was an unfortunate little shuffle. Decides to do a cha-cha slide, or maybe the hokey cokey goes right in and right out again. Does get out of dodge, but that was unusual.
Just a prank.
Apparently so. Aibo, though, has decided, the moment we bring up these Aatrox, does it go to this? Yike's got no flash, and he's in so much danger. That gravity field, though, from Eika prevents the kill, but that is twice now that Yike has been forced to very low HPs in his own damn jungle.
And you know, he was actually doing the comparison between Aibo and Adam, funnily enough. Aibo's the one making the roams down straight away towards the
I was
mid lane.
about to say, Aibo is actually one of the highest skill participation top laners that are in the quarterfinals, and that's why, because he's willing to leave that top lane to get his advantage around the map. He's willing to group up with his team very early on for Heralds, for Dragon fights, and this is why he gets these high DPS numbers that you see on the champion and the high KDA. Not only is he a master of the champion, but he also makes it work very early on. bluerzor?
Yike in danger. bluerzor does land that flag and drag, but the ground field doing a fair amount to prevent the easy kill. Just HP going in the favor of Heretics right now.
Not quite enough damage yet to blow the flash, but again, if they get the flash here, Eika's really respectful. All of a sudden, that level 6 becomes so easy for the setup, right? You've got the wall, you've got the Cataclysm, anything you need. This is what I was saying, even though, yes, you've got Jackspektra and whiteinn in this very favorable bottom side matchup, if you go towards the mid lane, if Viktor has no flash, you're dealing with a Jarvan and you're dealing with that Emperor's Divide from Azir.
And this is now a couple times in a row that we've seen Heretics looking to be aggressive early. It's what we were hoping to see on the desk. And a reminder, they are the last hope of the rest of Europe. The LFL dominance has been pretty much complete across the rest of this tournament for the last year or two.
I don't care where you're from. If you don't want to see LFL versus LFL, you're with Heretics tonight.
Yeah. And no one expected the Spanish Inquisition in the semi-finals, but here they are looking to bring down this sort of French dominance that's been going on for so long. And, you know, the LVP hasn't been to a final since 2019 with the Vodafone Giants. Mad Lions in 2018 were the last time the Spanish League actually won. And of course, Mad Lions went on to join the LEC. Heretics are joining next year, and Jackspektra is taking an ugly trade with the Rend coming through there.
And talking about Heretics joining the LEC, I want to draw our eyes straight to bluerzor. Back in 2021, he was playing for BDS Academy. Now guess what? BDS got a spot in the LEC. bluerzor was not part of that roster, even though he was playing for the Academy. Now he's playing for Heretics. Heretics got a spot in the LEC. This is the second time is the charm, basically, for bluerzor to prove his worth, so he could potentially get that upgrade ticket to first class.
The story's kind of writing itself, right? And you would definitely hate to see him miss out 2 times in the manner that they have done, especially Heretics being, you know, maybe the most dominant Spanish team we've seen in a while. I mean,
it's been a while.
You had the argument for Fnatic Team Kesso last year.
I don't know, man. Last time Fnatic was dominant, they were playing for the NLC. I don't know what you're telling me.
Okay. All right. They were quite good in spring as well. Noah out there is like, please don't forget. And of course, they had that unfortunate run at EU Masters, but even so, early pressure from LDLC there, getting that very nice trade by Exakick early on will give them a chance to get towards this early dragon, but Heretics may be looking to see whether there's a steal angle available.
They're going for it at the very least. They don't want to let it go, right? We've had bot lane priority for so long. It's coming down low now.
Oh my days. It's going to get close. Taken by Exakick with the double knockup. It's pretty huge. In they come for the Shurima shuffle and first blood onto Yike. Surely he has been the target of so much pressure in this early game, and he does fall down. Dragon for kill trade.
I think you're fine if you're LDLC. You've not lost anything else. It's just the kill that's going down. Luckily for you, it's not the Draven, very importantly, that's cashing in. It just goes over to whiteinn, the Renata, so it's fine. You'll trade 1 kill onto your jungler, but you've secured a very important objective the second you start stacking the map, because you know you're also losing a lot of that priority towards the bot side of the map. So the fact that you're able to take this away when you're not having a lot of prior bot is pretty good for your team.
I mean, LDLC just have to set up right the Rend, the smite. It's the Rend that secures it in the end, and I think it was actually just a combination of Yike and that Rend. Unfortunately, Yike Splash doesn't get him far away enough from that Emperor's Divide. And again, they just continue to attack the bottom side of the map, because right now Exakick still has a pretty massive lead. He has that Summoner spells though, and he has a base.
Oh no, it's going to be dangerous. He's got a barrier, but not enough weight. The damage isn't quite there. Flashing forward for a Zephyr. Make sure it's a 1-for-1, but that cash-in is huge, and Jackspektra comes out very healthily atop. It's a 700 gold swing. But here comes Yike and Eika looking to make sure that this pain is paid back. The slow comes through. The flag and drag comes down. In with the Chaos Storm. Is it enough? A flash for the Siphon power secures Eika a kill onto the enemy jungler.
It's a really nice response, at the very least, to the dive, but I feel like the damage is kind of half done, right? You got the gold where you want it inside of the Draven, and now you're at the very least back at parry, a little bit ahead even. Let's take a look at the dive again, because honestly, really solid execution from Heretics.
And Exakick had not backed after this Dragons. He has no mana, he has very little HP, and very importantly, DOS is not level 6 to try and dissuade this dive. Jackspektra cashing in really, really early means that this laning phase for the Kalista is gonna get harder and harder.
It really is.
They're going to try their very best to do that. Of course, Eika, with the quick roam, does what he has been doing all split long in the LFL. Just teaming up with his jungler, getting out of that lane, and making things on the side lanes work. And now let's have a look. Now we've got a little bit more time, and there's no more jungler invades going on. Have a look at those bot laners. On the desk, they were calling these two the princes that were promised. These two who were trying to basically use as an opportunity to get themselves into the LEC. They have been two of the very best. And the moment we try and bring it up, they're fighting in the top side jungle, ways away from the bot lane.
Narrative isn't allowed, Sam, all right?
Okay.
They don't want to hear it, and they're very much happy to just fist fight, and I mean, it's kind of what we expect from Heretics, and off the back of this, immediately, it's just the Herald, so we want to see where this is going to go. Expectations, probably bot lane trouble.
Now, absolutely, I think the more money you put into the Draven early on, the better it is. But also, when you have a mid that perma wave clears, you usually want to use the Rift Herald to open up that mid lane, because it's that much more difficult to try and get Eika off that mid lane to drop down the tower, right? So you've got 2 choices. We'll see what Heretics are going to go with, but You see how we mentioned how LDLC, when they were pressured in the best of 5 in quarterfinals, it was a team that played their pace. They played that slow early game, straight into team fights that LDLC are really freaking good at. Heretics are brawlers, they're skirmishers, they'll take the fight to you. Now, we know LDLC to be one of the most solid teams in the early game who don't bleed very easily, but here they have already bled close to 2,000 gold. A lot of that is also into the jungle for bluerzor, but Aibo might be in trouble.
The Forge God has been called, but the Ram Jam not quite enough to secure a kill to Aibo, who will flash away.
Wow.
Brittle Proc is pretty good, but it is not enough to secure the kill.
Yes, Yike with no Ornn, that's why they actually end up turning around there.
Just
not
sticking
enough
around.
to take it down. But yeah, I mean, denying the wave is pretty good, right? Aibo, pretty massive, but still going to be able to walk up. A little bit of red buff regen. Allows him to just basically secure most of this wave for himself, so this gank kind of comes to moot.
And, you know, you've got to look at these numbers now. It is Heretics green across the board, up in gold everywhere. They're up about that 1,000 gold. They've still got that Herald to drop, and that is credit to them. Honestly, I was getting a little nervous when Exakick was getting a lot of those plates earlier on. But the shutdown gold that came through for Jackspektra is great news. They've got that Herald, and they are up with a squad that wants to get that snowballing happening, get that Aatrox, get that Draven towards the first item nice and early on. Now to see where bluerzor does drop it in trouble. Have you spotted something here that's catching your eye?
Every single time there is bot lane prio from the side of Heretics, the first thing they do is they move straight into the jungle to see if there's any minions left to put down some vision for themselves. It's a constant push through bot to invade that bot side, get whatever you can, whether it's vision, whether it's minions, or whether it's actually a kill, and continue snowballing through that. Now I'm expecting Heretics to drop that Rift Herald actually mid, now that only Eika is around and Yike is resetting to try and move into the river for that dragon that's spawning in 10 seconds.
Exactly that. They've got the vision control, they've got the Herald, they're looking to move towards the river. Now you see whether LDLC want to contest it.
Yeah, I mean, with this much control, right, they've got wards kind of littered around the bottom side there, you can kind of see, so they have a rough idea of what's going on, but it's still Heretics in the river first. They've got the Herald, it looks like they're going to use it bottom side just to secure a bit of extra gold for Jackspektra, but also a little bit of pressure. Is Zwyroo going to go over the wall as well? Looks like the answer's no, so they just want the plates for now. Jackspektra got that solo, actually, so he's going to get a massive chunk extra, 320 in total.
Does indeed.
That's going to swing the gold even further in his favor.
But here's the thing, right? That Rift Herald was just used, not necessarily for pressure, but it was used for gold. Gold that hasn't been cashed in yet in the inventories, and there's a dragon fight that's about to come up. And last time it was LDLC that managed to find the smite together with the rend from Exakick to secure that one. Now DOS is moving in, Eika and Yike are coming in through the jungle, but I think this dragon's already gone.
There will be some on the site reporting from DOS here with that weather skin from Janna. Whose name I forgot? What is it? Forecast Janna. There we go. Took me a second. Like, there's a name of that.
Yoink.
Tried to steal it. Not sure whether it was
Not
quite
no, it
able
was
to get
bluerzor. It was bluerzor.
Did manage to get that, but that is dragon secured alongside that skull crab, and they got the Herald down as well. Nice sequence of play from Heretics there to get themselves a healthy lead in this early game.
Yeah, it was just a really good map state, right? Aibo was able to potentially roam down, and Ragner had no way of actually answering it straight away. But on top of that, I just feel like Heretics had the setup already set in stone, and that's really big for the entirety of the game because LDLC already had that first dragon. If you give over that second one, all of a sudden you're kind of worrying always in the back of your head, soul point. But you kind of want to wait a little bit longer for the Azir to come online, also the Aatrox, and I think just being able to break that apart. And also spawn in the best soul in the game, by the way. I'm here to defend myself.
All right, sorry, like, I've not got my wallet on me. You can't sell this cloud to me.
Production, please. I'm gonna either have Memera with the craziest puns,
oh my days,
the craziest puns in history, or the Cloud Soul Defender. You know what? This is Clown Soul. There you go.
Oh, but like, okay, I'm not. All right, I'm stopping this here. We're not having this fight.
Argument?
No, come on. All right, look. Behave, children. All right. Well, like, it's game 1. I need you guys on good terms at least until game 3.
Now.
Yes.
Bring everyone back into this game. I'm starting to worry a little bit, honestly, for LDLC, because even though you've got Ornn, you've got ornaments, you've got scaling, most of your scaling falls onto Eika. It falls onto this Viktor, something that it is pretty easy to itemize against. A Hex Drink potentially on Jackspektra and Aibo could solve the issue. Something like Spirit Visits. Aibo?
Literally the moment we say you're getting in trouble, they do this, but over comes whiteinn and bluerzor. Bailed out. Is it going to be enough to keep on? He's revived! And that means it's going to be this 1v3. Ragner's got nowhere to go. They tried to give the execute over to Jackspektra. It will not happen, though. It's still a 2 for none in favor of Heretics.
Ambulance, but not for me!
Oh, now they're playing the mid lane!
Shuffle gets DOS back, but he'll be flashing away. So when he can, Zwyroo taking so much damage, will be bailed out, but will there be enough to stopwatch? Is it going to be enough time? Does burn down, not enough money in the bank. There is the to Monsoon afterwards to keep him alive. An LDLC outplay in mid.
Oh, what a clutch stopwatch, man. Just being able to stop the bailout come through because almost certainly Eika was going to drop. Stopping the bailout back to back, that would have been a tilter if they're able to get those revives off in that manner. And now Heretics kind of stifled a bit in their mid lane play. They'll still get this topside tower, however, for Aibo, and that's a massive swing of gold considering how far ahead he is continuing to grow his lead now.
And a very necessary turnaround because LDLC, if they lose that play as well alongside the top tower, it's beginning to feel very dire. At least they have a good feel moment. Might get this bot lane tower as well.
I feel like if they lost one member in the mid lane, they would lose two right there. So it would be a huge influx of gold for the side of Heretics. But very importantly, yes, LDLC have managed to break that both side of the map. But again, what I was about to say is that Ornn will bring you ornaments, but the scaling is mainly onto your Viktor. Your Kalista will struggle to play these teamfights no matter how much space you can buy for her. Aibo is like, well, I'm here. I'll take all of your ults. Thank you very much.
Yeah, and I mean, do you know what actually keeps him alive here? It's the Gordrinka build of all things. He has the HP and the proc. Obviously, normally we see the Eclipse come out.
Come on, Renata did something there as
okay,
well.
All right, Renata did something. But I feel like if Aibo didn't have the Gordrinka and the extra HP, he would have actually probably died before that revive came in from the Renata. So moving on towards this mid lane play now, Zwyroo just says, hey, I mean, they're here. You guys are roaming down from the top side, and they make it almost work. The bailout almost comes through, but this stopwatch is so clutch from Eika.
Eika flashes about a Teemo outside of the range of the shuffle as well, so he doesn't get pushed back and he doesn't take the damage there. Big turnaround. Still a gold lead for Heretics. Still feeling very happy. Second item now for Jackspektra as well. And on the other side, yes, the Kalista has got some CS, but is behind in gold. That's not what you want to see. The Kalista not really being played to that much either. Could be a problem here. We've got a minute until what we third Dragon, and Herald number 2 is alive. Question is, when do LDLC feel now is the time we have to fight? Because you kind of said, outside of the Viktor, the scaling, not phenomenal.
You're gonna have to start trying to fight, catch someone on a side lane. That someone could very easily be that Aibo, get that buy on a side lane, get another damage dealer, because even if Heretics lose Aibo, they've got Azir, they've got Draven. If they lose Draven, they've got Azir, they've got Aatrox. They lose the Azir, they've got 2 more damage dealers. They have 3 damage dealers in the team. If they lose any of them, there's more people to do the damage. On the other side, if you lose the Kalista, that's your consistent damage coming through. Viktor's just gonna throw his poke out, back out. Throw his poke out, back out. If you lose your Kalista, if she gets caught accidentally in anything, something like an Azir shuffle or anything, you pretty much have to back out of the fight.
Yeah, and even then I feel like Kalista's going to struggle, right? Exakick, look at the range difference really between a lot of these champions. If he's in range to deal damage, he's also in range to die.
Yeah.
So I feel like he's definitely going to struggle. A lot is going to be put on Eika's shoulders here. Fortunately for them, they actually have first move into the river. It's Heretics, they're a little bit slow to this play. They're going to start up the Dragon, and that's always going to be one of the key sort of win conditions for these fights for LDLC, being in front of objectives first.
But for Heretics, it's so much more important to break that mid lane tier 1 and open the map completely for them. And unfortunately for LDLC, they have to reply to that Rift Ult, which means that they briefly have to get out of the river. Heretics move in as 5. They do not want to TP Ragnar into this, and 2 are going to go to the side of Heretics.
Well played there, despite all the vision control. Overgo LDLC though, but I don't think they want that. Hostile takeover gets onto 2. The Monsoon by time, but Exakick cannot flash far enough away, and he's straight into a grave, courtesy of the glorious execution from Noxus. Nowhere to go for DOS either. He'll be a second one to make sure it's 3 kills in the pockets of Jackspektra.
Oh, it's a disaster, LDLC. They don't get the Dragon, they go with the blast cone.
You're not Aibo.
And then they also die. Now Aibo's looking for the 1v1, and honestly, he's going to find it.
Just like this. There goes the call of the Forge God, and Ragner cannot stop his world being rocked. An end of days, courtesy of a world ender. A few more Darkened Blades, he dies as well. And a monstrous series of wins across the map for Heretics.
And where did this all start? It started from the bot lane. It started with Jackspektra and whiteinn, locking in the Draven, locking in the Renata, getting that prior through bot. bluerzor kept invading, they kept getting that early game pressure through bot. And now that Draven is 2,000 gold on top of the Kalista.
What on earth was this blast cone, Jamal?
They don't have vision. I mean, I guess they're just not. They probably expected everyone to move up towards the mid lane. That's my only
Why?
guess.
Because their minimap got wiped out the map?
Look, I'm just looking for something to grasp at, okay, Trouble? I'm not in the mind here. What I thought was quite cute was when Dos got dragged in, obviously Exakick had already died. And
they won't notice, guys.
They won't notice. I'm just going to stay here. Maybe they leave. It's like Solid Snake underneath a cardboard box.
The exclamation mark tops of the head of Jackspektra. It's like, oh no.
He's a snake. He's a slippery snake.
What is going on in this cast? Okay, mid lane turret just fell as well, and suddenly Heretics have gone from a few thousand gold ahead to a solid 6,500 gold in their favor. When we were chatting about this in the green room, we said, look, if the Heretics come out swinging in the early game, get themselves a lead, they may well be favored in this series. This is exactly what you want to see if you're a Heretics fan.
Exactly, but what I will say on the opposite side for LDLC, never mind. Fate's cool.
Alongside the story, Scotland straight back in the teleport for this, and maybe LDLC has had enough of just losing like this. In goes bluerzor, the turnaround is huge. The Zwyroo shuffle, make sure Eika dies. It's now the 1-for-1, but I think the damage is done. It's a 3-for-2 already. Aibo in the backside onto Exakick, looking to kick his head in. Take down the Kalista, nowhere to go. It's an 8-for-2.
Heretics have snowballed that early game to a pretty much confirmed victory on the map right now. And if we see this again, bluerzor is always spraying, trying to fight Dos right there, but a pretty good stopwatch will save him. But here Dos is trying to pull a Trimby, goes a little bit too deep. But that Renata ult and the bailout on bluerzor, Jackspektra makes sure that his jungler gets out.
The combo is actually quite good from LDLC, to be honest with you, but they just run out of damage, and that Renata ult just zones everybody away.
And because your damage is just trying to run away.
Just running away from this guy, smashing your head in. Aibo, I mean, again, in these team fights, kind of around these mid lane brushes, it's just where he seems to thrive, apparently. Kicks X ahead.
This was really funny because Aibo walks out with like pretty much 1,000 needles and spears on his body. He's like, I'm fine.
Acupuncture. Like, he's acupuncture. He's had a nice little session warming himself up. I hate to do this, but I do want to turn your eyes down to the gold discrepancy between the AD carries. Because that is now 3 completed items plus stopwatch to not even 2 for the side of Exakick.
That's all right.
I think.
Wait, can I say something?
Yeah.
Why does Exakick have 2 agility?
Is he trying to get to crit like
He's
now?
trying to conceal himself from the Aatrox.
Ah, right.
It's like a cloak from like Harry Potter and stuff.
Instead of an agility
it's
cloak,
an invisibility cloak.
Invisibility cloak, right? Yeah.
The damage feels invisible.
It's not working.
No.
Okay, I think all jokes aside, I think LDLC, they have to go back to the drawing board. The fact that they were willing to pick the Kalista into Azir, I'm all with you. But you need to be a lot more active in the early game to try and get that Kalista ahead, because right now, Heretics are 1 team from winning.
Cease and desist goes in, but it's turned around with a hostile takeover again. Yike is executed, the whirling death that lives up to its namesake. Aibo comes flying in. The world is ending, and the French team, the #1 seed from the LFL, are collapsing in game 1.
It's a complete routing from the Heretics side. And I mean, honestly, this has just been clinical, and this is what we wanted to see from the Spanish side. I think for LDLC, like you were just about to say, going back to the drawing board, reevaluating the draft a little bit, because to me, sure, losing game 1, a bit of a download potentially, but let's see how they'll look moving forward.
And just as it was written, we were hoping for some competition. We were hoping for a series that would come out swinging. Heretics bring down the pre-tournament favorites in game 1.
I don't know, man. I think it all comes down to when you're willing to draft something that's clearly not stronger than the B1 that your enemy has picked, and it should be counterpicked. You should play through it. And even though I felt like Heretics managed to stomp through that bot of the map, there was no reply from the side of LDLC. And you know Heretics are going to play through that bot side. They are going to play through their prio. You give them Azir, you also give them Draven. You're like, fine, I'll just counterpick myself with Kalista. We need more.
Yeah, I feel like the biggest issue really was just like, you have all the agency for the mid game, but where is it in the early game? Sure, Exakick actually 1-1 was having a pretty okay time. He was all right in the CS department. It's never the 1v1 though. That's the big deal, right? And I feel like sure, LDLC strengths, they can potentially lie towards the mid game sometimes, especially into a team like Heretics, I feel. But you need to give yourself something in the early game to actually lean on. I think this Kalista pick was maybe not the best idea into the, you know, the Draven connoisseur that is Jackspektra.
Alas, we never have enough time to continue breaking down this game either here, because we have an analyst desk that will do that for us. So as we're at the end of this first very exciting game, it's time to throw it to a break. And after that, the analyst desk will take that game apart for you. See you in a few.